But what brings us to today's show is Miss Roberta Tabb. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know Walt kind of gave us some bits and pieces, but tell us who you are, what you're doing, a little bit about where you started and came from.
I'm not sure where I should start. So yeah, I have two books. I have an app that I just launched and developed during the pandemic. I'm actually a web designer, e-commerce web designer. I work for Lacoste. I think that's important to mention simply because all of the skills that I've ascertained like during my career as a designer or doing multimedia, all of those skills are the same skills that I use when I'm like creating a book or creating an app or things like that. So I think that's very important to mention. Walt mentioned that I was in People magazine. So a long time ago, like back when I lived in Pittsburgh, 18 years ago or whatever, I was overweight. So I lost like 100 pounds by myself, like all through like diet and exercise. And that was like before it was cool to like be fit. That was before Instagram, before Pinterest, where you could look up like diets and recipes and things like that. And someone like my doctor like told People magazine my story. And from then on, they featured me. They featured me once in a huge issue, and then they kept coming back to check on me to see how I was doing. And every time they checked on me, like I had like just released a book or something, or I had just launched a blog. So every time that happened, they would feature me again. So to that point, I always tell people, you know, you just have to stay ready like all the time. There was always something that I was working on. There was always something like in the mix that I had to like offer the world.
Right. Yo, that's amazing. So it seems like you have a drive that many people don't have, and a drive that leads to success for you. What fuels your drive?
So I talk about this a lot. I honestly think that any of the drive, ambition, motivation, all of it comes from like just my journey and like losing weight. So it happened a very long time ago, but it's something that I'd struggled with for years and I never thought I could accomplish. Like, I mean, you try, you know, 100 times and you fail and you fail and you fail. And then that last time it just sticks and it's kind of like, wow, I can't believe I actually did that. Like, I can't believe I'm actually doing it. So in my opinion, there has been nothing harder that I needed to achieve than going through life and, you know, losing weight and keeping the weight off and then using that story to inspire others. So I always hold on to the idea that I did something that I completely thought was impossible, and it kind of fuels me for the rest of my projects. That's like, you know, if I'm interviewing for a job, if I'm starting a new personal project, any of those things, it's like, well, you did this really crazy, hard thing that so many people are striving to do, and you were able to enhance yourself and keep the weight off for like all of this time. So there's nothing that you can't do if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so so a lot of people, right? They you know, they may be motivated to accomplish something, to do something. They may have a goal, and fear always comes in and stops them. You know, it's like a walking into a brick wall. And oftentimes with fear, it paralyzes people, right? And so they don't take that next step. Was there any point in your journey, and let's just start with your initial journey, but then think about the other things that you accomplished, whether it be the app that you created, or even writing the book. Was there any time that fear crept in and maybe you got doubtful and you almost didn't push through on completing something?
I think that I'm a super personal person. So a lot of the projects that I work on, probably even when I was losing weight, I didn't really express what I was doing to other people. I think fear, I've I think fear comes a lot from the expectations of other people. Like, I'm afraid to fail because, my family will think like XYZ or whatever. I think for me, I've never really had a fear of failure because I failed so many times and I knew that I would just start again, like over and over again. So I can't think of a time when I was like really scared to do something. With projects after like losing weight, I think that I go into them fearless. Like I don't have any fear because like for me, I always ask myself, what's the worst that could happen?
Mm.
What's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't get the job that I really wanted. I'm still here. I still get to be me. I'll just try again. With
Right.
the app, oh, maybe the code doesn't work, and the app store won't submit the app, and they'll tell me I have to do it all over again. I'm not gonna die. Like I'll just do it all over again. There's the question I always ask myself is, what's the worst that could happen? And the answer is never death. So I have to go into things like fearlessly. That was a good question because I've never actually thought about that before.
Yeah, and I guess if death was on the table, you'd probably think twice about it, right?
So
I'd be a little scared. Yeah, I'd be a little fearful.
Speaking of death, Berta, do you think that Pittsburgh played a part in that? Because when we were growing up, that was a big part of the city. Gangs, drugs, shooting, stuff like that. That was a common occurrence. And we kind of, you and I, we operated in a better time in high school, but like just before we got there, it was pretty sketchy there, So do you think the environment that Pittsburgh created, the old Pittsburgh, because it didn't like that now, it's way different. Do you think that played a part in your level of fearlessness?
I don't know. Because I have to say, I grew up really sheltered. I mean, you might not know, like, I'm sure people don't know, but I actually like came from the projects. Like when I was born, we lived in the projects. We lived in the Homewood projects for like 5 years, and then we moved to the north side. So living in the projects, my parents kept us extra sheltered. Like we didn't see like anything. Like we were poor, but we didn't really know we were poor because we always had everything that we needed. So I can't say that I was really subjected to kind of like the fearful, like Pittsburgh. I mean, I knew things were happening around me, but I actually, wasn't in the middle of it.
All right. And see, and that's what I mean, I guess. And I tell, the fellas and Crystal all the time, like, I really think my life in Pittsburgh changed the way I look at a lot of things. There's so many things I'm just not afraid of, because I remember when I first got to South Carolina, it was like, why is everybody so nice? I mean, Derek, Crystal, I know y'all can speak. I mean, Devin, Crystal, y'all can speak to that because it was like, why is everybody so nice? Why is everybody smiling and happy and wanting to say what's up all the time? I'm like, yo, this is crazy. It's weird to me. And it was like, I could remember on Lincoln Ave, like, you didn't speak to people you didn't know. If I went to Homewood or if I went to the Hill, if I didn't know people, I just didn't speak to them. It was different. So it was like you developed a really hard exterior moving through the city. You know what I mean? And that sense of independence, like I know I had a huge sense of independence. I caught the city bus everywhere I had to go, didn't have access. I had access to a car, but I really couldn't drive it whenever I wanted to. So I had that level of independence. So when I say, do you think your experience shaped how you approach these different challenges? I mean, like more so as a young adult, not necessarily as a child. I mean, I grew up similar to you. My parents ain't let me know we ain't have much. Knew the crazy was going on, but they kept us from it for the most part. But as I got older, it was like you had to know how to navigate different things on your own. Like you wasn't always going to have a support team, you know what I mean, with you. So do you think that played a part? Like, because at Shinley, you from the north side, I was from Lincoln, like we was outsiders.
Yeah, no, I think definitely growing up the way that we did, I think we got to be really independent. Like you said, taking the bus, I had a job since I was like 14, like you really did have to learn how to navigate like on your own. I don't think that you can do that there now. I'm not, my sister doesn't let her kids do that, but I actually am thankful for those experiences where, you know, it's Saturday and we're catching 3 buses to go to Century 3 Mall. You know, it's a different world now than it was before, but I think I'm definitely grateful for those experiences. Once, you know, I got older, all I knew is that I wanted to move out of Pittsburgh because I knew every place couldn't be like this place. Like I was like, there's got to be something better than this. So I knew that I wanted to leave. And I think that independence that I had, like as a teenager, kind of prepared me to come to New York. Like I came here by myself, you know, I literally came here with the savings and no job, you know, and I had to hit the ground running. So, I mean, it's a tough place, like, especially if you're new here.
So I have, I have 2 questions and a statement. So the first question is, what are you drinking? Because it looked like you had some fruit or something in your water, or is that water?
That's infused vodka. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is infused water.
Okay.
And this is the vodka.
Nice.
Because I knew I see something in the bottom.
This is infused water. This has lemon, mint, and pomegranate seeds in it. Oh. So this is like, so my first book, Simply Tabbtastic, is meal prep. It's meal prep. And they're like, I think there are 5 or 6 different infused water recipes in here. So I make 6 of these like every Sunday so I can like drink them throughout the week. So that I'm like, I don't drink anything except for water, like when I'm home, unless it's a special occasion, like now when I'm drinking vodka. So it spruces up, you know, the water that I drink all day.
Okay. I'm like, I knew I seen something down there. But then I also seen something that didn't have any fruit in it. So I'm like, okay. What she got going on over there? My other thing my statement that I want to make is your eyebrows are off the chain. Coming from somebody who has caterpillars right now because of this quarantine, those eyebrows are the bomb. So if y'all are listening to the podcast, make your way over to YouTube and look at these eyebrows. These eyebrows are the bomb.
Oh, thank you. I just plucked them and color them in a little bit, but thank you.
They look great. So my question for you is, as a Black woman, you know, and it sounds like you have, you know, you've really, you know, beat a lot. You've overcome a lot. And with you saying that you went to New York on a savings, and of course not knowing how things were going to go out, but of course you said, what else can happen? The worst that can happen is I don't get the job I want. But as a Black woman, you know that we face a lot of things. And with you going to New York, being a Black woman, being such a big city, a lot of competition, what are some things that you've endured there or in your career and your success? What have you endured that have kind of helped you with where you are now? What are some things that you've had to face? And if you had to give some advice to somebody like me or other Black women that are listening, what would you have to say?
Okay, so I think the first bit of advice that I'd give anybody that wanted to move to New York is to be prepared. For me, being prepared in my mind was having an education. You know, like I got an undergrad degree in like art, and then I got a master's degree in writing, right? So I'm like, okay, now finally I'm ready. I think I have enough education to move to New York. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but like that's the first bit of advice that I'd give people is to be prepared. The second is to be confident, because like you said, there is a lot of competition here. Literally, like on LinkedIn, when I've applied for jobs in the past, you can see the pool of people that you're in competition with. For example, when I applied for a job at Lacoste, I think the pool was like 553 applicants or something, and it told me that I was in like the top 10% of the applicants that had applied, right? So me between, you know, however the top 10 applicants, say they brought in 7 people, we're all qualified to do the job. They've looked at all of our portfolios before we got there, right? Why would they pick me over picking, you know, this other girl with the same qualifications as me. Confidence, charm, you have to be likable, like that, it actually matters, and especially being a Black woman. And I'm a Black woman with a tattoo on her neck, okay? I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a tattoo on my neck that I don't hide, that I don't cover up, right? So and that's a choice that I made. I wouldn't do it again, but I'm saying that, I have to overcompensate for having a tattoo on my neck in an interview. I'm a creative, but give me a break, right?
Stereotypes and all of that, she's gonna be one of them.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the two bits of advice that I would give. Be prepared and be very confident. Things that I've had to endure, I don't know. I mean, I think it's the same sorts of things that everybody has to endure. I can't say that in my field that I've ever felt like I didn't get a job because I was Black. Mm-hmm. And I'll say that because what I do is very specific and very specialized. So talent is talent. In other positions, you don't actually have a portfolio that they're looking at to see how creative you are. They're not looking at, how you represent another brand. You just have yourself, but I have myself and I have a portfolio, right? So I think in my field, early on, people were just interested in what brands I had worked for, the type of work that I did, how many people were viewing my work on the regular. I mean, because if I'm working for a website, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people, are depending on whatever I put on a website, whatever I put on a web page, daily to shop through. So I think I don't want to cop out and say it was easy, because it wasn't, but I'm saying that I can't say that there's something that I specifically could point out that I had to kind of overcome with what I do. I do know that I had to be super confident. I know I had to walk in any room and act like I owned it. I know I had to be charming, Okay, so I'll say that you can never come off as an angry or angry Black woman or being so stern. So I do have to make sure that I'm always smiling and that, I kind of have a cheery vibe to me. So maybe that's something that I don't even look at it as overcoming. I guess I'm so used to having to make myself, seem softer so that I'm not catering into that stereotype, that it's not something that I'm overcoming, because it's something that I always have to do, even though it is something that I've had to overcome. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You had to do
what I'll say about Berta, I think it's kind of she didn't say it, but I think it's kind of evident in how she's describing it. It's about the presentation. You know what I mean? What are you presenting to the people? And I think that representation also matters to young Black women that are coming up under her. I've taught, and I think the first time I called you, Berta, I was in a predominantly Black school, and I text Berta, I was like, yo, do you mind if I share your information in my classroom? You know what I mean? Because it was going to be monumental for those young Black girls to see a successful Black woman doing something that with brands that they could all recognize. I pulled her resume up on the screen, and it wasn't a traditional resume. It had her picture, and it was off to the side. It was a little, it was style, and it was like, what? Who's that? And I was like, this is my friend from high school. And I'm telling them, and, and I think I messaged her yo, you mind if I tell them certain stuff? He was like, yeah, go ahead, tell them. And I told them all this stuff. This is how much money she's making. And they're like, I've never had a classroom that quiet. They was like, what? We can do all of that too? Just by learning in your class? I was like, yeah. And look, she looks just like you. She had the tattoo on her neck, and it was for them, for young Black girls coming up, just to be able to see somebody like Berta, it makes a difference. You know what I mean? And because she does put out she's in magazines, and she's got her book, and she's not just being successful, behind the scenes, I guess. It's always good to see, Black women doing things that are not the norm. She's not in videos and on reality.
So to your point, sorry not to cut you off, but to your point, another huge part of my life is mentoring. And I specifically started mentoring because I wanted little girls of color, not just Black girls, Dominican girls, Puerto Rican. I wanted all of them to see another brown woman that's not not in like videos or whatever they look up to. I don't know. Like what I wanted them to see another person that looked like them, that had a, you know, good education, that had a job that she liked, an actual career, and that was still kind of fly, you know? Like I wanted them to see that, you know, that can be you too, and to let them know that I came from the same place that you came from. So I think that's like a huge point that we should be making to, like, you know, little girls.
Like that's the selling point, I think, right there. Like if you go to her page, you know, you go to Roberta's page, she doesn't hide the fact that, you know, she made the transformation she made. But I think it's really telling. And if we can, I'm going to put it in the YouTube video for us, like the before and after picture. Like if you see the Berta before and then the Berta now, it's like the Berta before is the little girl from an urban environment. And it's like, you'd be like, what? You can go from that to this? It's like, yes, you can. Hard work, education, dedication, drive. You know what I mean? These are the things that you can accomplish. So it's important to see that, you know, like all of our wives are doing great things, you know, in their own respective lanes, you know, and that's like, all right, our daughters are fortunate enough to have women in the house that they can look up to that are amazing, you know. But what about the little girls who don't have that, whose mom is living off the system and not really trying to make it, and she knows there has to be something better? It's like women like Berta that can be that, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's the important part about it.